All right, here we go. Yay, it's working. Okay, this starts off as kind of a thought experiment. Rather than actually hooking up wires to see what would happen, we'll just start with an idea and then think about it for a while. Maybe do some Google searches, some calculations, and see if it seems practical. I remember once my dad saying something along the lines of, technically, you could use a welder as a battery charger. As a kid, all I could imagine was all the arcing and sparking. I didn't comprehend the concept of power as volts and amps. Also, I might be glossing over the important details, so you probably shouldn't just use a welder for a battery charger. But I had that idea stuck in my head one day. Okay, so I started down the rabbit hole, right? First, I found the welder's owner's manual for my MIG welder. Technical specs. Power supply, 120 volts, 20 amps, AC. No load voltage, 69 volts, DC. Output range, 30 to 140 amps, DC. Duty cycle, 30% at 90 amps. Okay, that's interesting. I couldn't hook it directly to a 12-volt battery, but my MPPT charge controller for solar can handle 100 volts and 30 amps DC. So in theory, I could see a welder as a power supply to charge the batteries. For now, I think there is probably a better way. But first, why do we want this anyway? I live off-grid. That means I don't have power lines coming to my house. I create my own power out here, mostly from solar panels. I do sometimes use a generator when I don't have enough solar. Welding is the only time I use the generator now. But sometimes, if we get a few cloudy days, my batteries start to run low. I have a Harbor Freight battery charger, but I think it quit working a while ago. It was rated at 15 amps. I now have 4 of the 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate batteries. You'll see that sometimes abbreviated as LiFePO4. Li for lithium, Fe for iron, Po for phosphate, and 4 phosphates probably. If I'm looking to charge my batteries, like after a few cloudy days, they'd probably be pretty low. So let's say I'm starting from 0. I would need 400 amp hours. People throw these numbers around a lot. Literally, if you needed 400 amp hours and we had a 15 amp battery charger, we could divide 400 by 15 and see it would take 26.66 hours to fully charge. Now, I'll probably be charging well before we get down to 0, but the idea of running a generator for a full day isn't why I moved out here. I had thought about dragging this out just to show you how noisy it is, but ain't nobody got time for that. I like the quiet. I really hate generators. Some of them aren't too bad, but mine is loud and burns gas. I don't have a truck anymore. I sold mine 3 years ago. So I'd have to ride my electric bike to town, about 24 miles round trip, and then haul some gas home on a bumpy road. That does sound funny. Electric bike to go buy gas for the generator. I've done it a couple of times, but not very often. The generator can provide a lot of power, so rather than running it for 24 hours, what we need is a bigger battery charger. Like, if we could do 100 amps, I could fully charge in 4 hours. That's a lot more reasonable. How often would I need to do that? Well, I figure I get about 15 to 20 amps of charge from solar most days, for about 6 hours of peak solar. Mornings and evenings we don't get as much solar, so we really focus on peak solar hours. Since normally my batteries aren't dead, I'm probably using about as much power as I'm generating. That makes sense, I guess. I've been living like this for about 5 years now, so I'm making use of what I have pretty efficiently. If I generate 15 amps for 6 hours of solar, that's 90 amp hours. So if I had one of the 100 amp hour batteries, that would last a day. By having 4 of the 100 amp hour batteries, I could run 2 or 3 days and still be in good shape. So one cloudy day isn't a problem, but a week of rainy weather and I'm not using my computer as much. If I had a 100 amp charger, I could add enough to the batteries in 1 hour to run all day. Then, if the sun came out, it could add more to the batteries, and the next day I would not need to run the generator. I have about 300 days of sun out here each year. So since I upgraded to the lithium iron phosphate batteries, I've not needed to charge the batteries with the generator. So, what's changing? I've got this big computer that I used to use pretty often for doing things like 3D animation and fancy video editing. It uses about 4 times the power of anything else I have here. So if I want to use that, I'll need more power. As it is now, I can run the big computer for a couple of hours, but not every day. That's a start, but it's just not enough. So, more power is always a good option. I could just run the generator while using the big computer, but again, it's noisy. I'd much rather run the generator for an hour, shut it down, and then work in peace and quiet. When I'm welding, I do all the measuring, cutting, grinding, clamping stuff with solar power. Then, when I'm ready, I start the generator just to run the welder. A minute or two later, I shut the generator off again until the next weld is ready. So that gas lasts quite a while. Alright, that's the situation. I think I found a pretty good option for a battery charger. There are a few to choose from 15 amps all the way to 120 amps. Prices are reasonable even. I'll check into it and get back to you soon. So be sure to subscribe and look for part 2 coming soon. Thanks as always for all the support and for watching the video to the very end. It really does help. Bye for now. Alright, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you got some useful ideas there. I've not been talking about this very much lately, but my main source of income has been these YouTube videos. The actual money I make from the ads is quite small. What actually keeps me going is a few people that are helping me out over on Patreon or YouTube members. Just a few bucks every month would sure make a huge difference. So if you get anything out of my content, there's a link down below, or I'll put it up on screen. You can help me out through Patreon, which is a monthly subscription. You can also do YouTube members, or you can just throw me a buck on PayPal once in a while. It all helps. Thank you very much. Bye for now.